I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, we've got word that an income tax proposal is imminent from Democrats in Washington state, and this time they are confident it will stick. Plus, records show business leaders are funding their own demise. And we're going to play a game of Name That Politician. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. That's undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show. Hello, and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. It's happening. I think this is a day that Washingtonians have dreaded. I think we always knew that Democrats were going to bring us to this point and push the budget and taxation to a limit where they absolutely make people believe that they have no other choice than to pass an income tax. So we have talked about rumors of this for a while, but I got word from a very reliable source that Democrats at their yearly retreat, it's something that all four corners, so the House Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans do every year around this time. They get together, they have a conversation about what their priorities are going to be for the session, which begins in January. And according to a very well-placed source, the conversation on the House Democratic side focused on the fact that they absolutely are intent on introducing a tax on income this year, and that they believe that they will have the backing of the state Supreme Court in order to do it. Now, that leads me to believe that they've done some, judge counting, that they've done some vote counting, which of course would be wholly inappropriate if they're speaking to state Supreme Court justices. It wouldn't be the first time, and we will do everything in our power to get to the bottom of those conversations if they actually happened. But I think there's a lot of questions this raises, obviously. In what form is that income tax going to take? I think it's very likely that some of the leaks that we heard last month are going to be true to what they introduce, and that's roughly a 10% tax on the income of people making over $1 million a year. Now, do you think it will stay there? Of course it won't. They believe, and I think that this is what the conversation that was relayed to us that happened at the House Democratic Party retreat, they believe that this is how this is going to play out. They think that they can introduce an income tax, claim it's just on the rich, so people making over $1 million a year, that Governor Bob Ferguson will sign it into law. And then they think even if there's an initiative or a referendum, that they believe that it will lose at the ballot because they can successfully and have successfully painted this issue as rich versus poor. And they're using the results of the capital gains income tax initiative that failed at the ballot box in 2023 in 2024 rather, in order to sort of prove that theory. Remember, there was an initiative to repeal a tax on capital gains, which is a tax on, yes, high earners. And when that went before voters, they successfully said, would let rich people off the hook. And so the initiative to repeal it failed. And so they're thinking in their mind that if we start the income tax, we'll get it past the Supreme Court, no big deal. Those are all Democrats. And if we are able to pass it in a narrow fashion that taxes 10% of the income of people who make over $1 million a year, again, this is the conversation that did happen, according to a well-placed source at the House Democratic retreat just a few days ago, that they believe no problem, the state Supreme Court will rule on our side. And they also believe that they'll be able to spin it in a way that convinces voters this is just about taxing the income of the rich. And of course, you know that is not how it will stay. Democrats have long said that they want an income tax without any sort of qualification. So as soon as it passes muster in the state Supreme Court, as soon as voters say, yeah, we want to tax the rich, we want the rich to pay their fair share, then it's smooth sailing from there. And every single one of you will get poorer overnight. Every single one of you, in a matter of years, will have your income taxed. So that's, again, according to a well-placed source, but there is some information that backs this up. So you'll recall just last week, Governor Bob Ferguson had a press conference and he said that this session, he's not going to sign off on any new taxes.
To bridge it with cuts only, no new taxes.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Just to be 100% clear, because I don't think I have heard this before. The budget proposal you're putting out here in a couple of weeks, it will not include any proposals for new revenue. It will be a cuts only budget to bridge the budget shortfall.
Where I'm at is still the same, that I don't plan on balancing the budget with the revenue.
Now, what were all the headlines after that? Bob Ferguson says no new taxes. No new taxes because he just signed the largest tax increase in state history. So no new taxes, no new taxes, no new taxes. But the truth is far more nuanced than that. And the truth is that he's choosing his words very carefully. And I want to explain to you what I mean by that, because you might be thinking, well, Brandi, Bob says he's not balancing the budget with new taxes, and you're telling us that your well-placed source says Democrats are going to introduce an income tax. So what's going on here? There was a pre-legislative session panel where Joe Fitzgibbon, who's the Democrat leader on the House side, he was part of a panel and they were talking about taxation. And he defined the budgetary problem, and this is all going to be very important. It might be a little nerdy, but I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. He described, again, this is the leading Democrat in the House, under the Speaker of the House. He defined the budget problem they have to fix in 2026.
Our acute problem headed into 2026 is balancing the remainder of the 25-27 budget, which concludes on June 30th, 2027. The only ways that new taxes could realistically come in time for that problem statement to be impacted would be to increase the sales tax or the property tax. And I don't see a lot of support for doing that right now. I think what I heard the governor say a few weeks ago was that he did not support increasing the property tax and the sales tax, and he did not support new revenue as a strategy for balancing our current budget. I just think that's reality. I don't know that that's a significant value judgment. I think based on the mechanics of how the Department of Revenue brings in revenue, a new tax is not going to bring in any resources in time to balance the 25-27 budget.
So in other words, Bob has no choice. Play the cut back from Bob again. Listen carefully to the way that he words his answers and the way that the questions are worded.
To bridge it with cuts only, no new taxes.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Just to be 100% clear, because I don't think I have heard this before. The budget proposal you're putting out here in a couple of weeks, it will not include any proposals for new revenue. It will be a cuts only budget to bridge the budget shortfall.
Where I'm at is still the same, that I don't plan on balancing the budget with the revenue.
Because he can't. Because there aren't new taxes that will get him the money in the state coffers in time to balance the current budget crisis. And state law mandates that the legislature passes a balanced budget. So if there are no feasible new taxes that can help them balance the budget, the only choice they have is to cut. That's the only choice he has. You'll notice what he's not promising and what Democrats are not promising. They're not promising that they're not going to introduce new taxes or raise taxes to help with future budgets, to help get them in place now so they don't have to have another cycle where they're cutting. Again, here's Joe Fitzgibbon.
Unless we can get the growth of healthcare spending under control and have a revenue that does not continually fall behind, we are going to be in this situation again. And I don't think any of us want to be in this situation again.
Okay, so we don't want to be in this situation again, where there's nothing we can do but cut in order to pass a balanced budget as required by law. So what do we need to do? We don't want to be in this situation again where our hands are tied. So this session, we need to do something to prevent this from happening again. And he spells out exactly what that something is.
The reason we rely heavily on sales tax, property tax, and business occupation tax is because there is a tool missing that 41 other states use, which is that they have an income tax. I recognize that's been a politically hot topic in Washington for a long time. The last time it was in front of the voters was the year I was elected, 2010, and the voters did not support it then. That said, I think it's a big enough missing piece of our tax code that could make our tax code more sustainable, more fair, and honestly less reliant on business taxes than it is today, that I think we should be willing to have a tough conversation about that. I don't think we should shy away from it just because the Supreme Court in 1935 voted in a 5-4 decision based on a federal interpretation of income as property that has not been in use for many, many decades. Let that keep us from having a discussion about could we have a tax code that works better for the people of our state.
So the leading Democrat in the House has just told you what their plan is and just spelled it all out. So can we go back to the Bob Ferguson promise and pledge that he made, now that I think we all fully understand the careful choosing of words?
To bridge it with cuts only, no new taxes.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Just to be 100% clear, because I don't think I have heard this before. The budget proposal you're putting out here in a couple of weeks, it will not include any proposals for new revenue. It will be a cuts only budget to bridge the budget shortfall.
Where I'm at is still the same, that I don't plan on balancing the budget with the revenue.
So these are totally separate things. What he just said means nothing. It means nothing in this debate over new taxes. There's no new taxes that are realistic that will fund the budget crisis they're in. So they have to cut to get there, but they don't want to deal with it again because Lord knows Democrats hate cutting spending. They got all this wish list of items that they want to pay for. So he makes that remark. Democrats have their retreat before the session. They say and spend a great deal of time during that retreat saying, this is the year. We are passing an income tax this year. And that means two things. They know Bob Ferguson will sign it. Because he supports an income tax. He supported the income tax on capital gains. Supporting an income tax is a fairly mainstream Democratic policy in Washington state. So they know two things. They know, and maybe because they've counted the votes and been on the phone with state Supreme Court justices, they know that it will survive a constitutional challenge. And they also know that Bob Ferguson will sign it. And they believe, based on the result of the initiative over capital gains, that they can successfully spin any sort of referendum or initiative as being banked by out-of-state billionaires who are just greedy and don't want to pay their fair share. And they know that with a media climate that's sympathetic, that just parrots the party line, and they know with the lies and the money that they're going to be able to spend from the unions, et cetera, that they can get the same result as the capital gains initiative, that they can defeat it. And you even heard Joe Fitzgibbon say there why they believe. He spelled out everything. We should have an income tax conversation. And he even spelled out how he believes legal precedent has changed when it comes to federal interpretation of property as income as property, that he believes he already knows the basis that the state Supreme Court will use to rule a tax on income constitutional, even though this sort of tax on income is blatantly unconstitutional under our state constitution. And let me be clear before I play you one more clip that's very important from Joe Fitzgibbon to understand this. This is going to be unpopular with a lot of you. And, Democrats might even use this on TV to take it out of context and spread their plan. If we had a state full of politicians who operated honestly, I might not oppose an income tax. If we had a state full of politicians who could be trusted to keep their word and do what's best, I might not oppose an income tax. Because it is true, in a certain sense, that there are aspects of our tax system that are regressive, where you have a product, it costs the same price whether you buy it if you're rich or you're poor, but the tax accounts for a larger percentage of a poor person's income than it does for a rich person's income. Like a gas tax, that means nothing to a rich person. The gas tax here means a lot to a poor person. But Joe Fitzgibbon brought up these other taxes that he listed off. Let's listen.
The reason we rely heavily on sales tax, property tax, and business occupation tax is because there is a tool missing that 41 other states use, which is that they have an income tax. He would... we have to, if we had an income tax, we wouldn't have to rely so heavily on all these other taxes. If you think for 1 second that Joe Fitzgibbon or Democrats will change any of the other taxes if they get an income tax, you're fooling yourself.
And that's why I would never support an income tax, because we're not dealing with honest people. We would have an income tax on top of the gas tax, on top of the property taxes, on top of the B&O tax, on top of the capital gains tax, and on top of every other tax that they have dreamt up over the last 15 years. They're not going to get rid of a damn tax. So in an honest state, with honest people, at the helm in Olympia, we could have an honest conversation about whether a fixed tax on income would make more sense than nickel and diming us to death at the gas pump and the grocery store and everywhere else. But we can't have that conversation because you're not honest people. So there's no way in hell I would support an income tax. But they've thought this all the way through. You guys, I need to tell you this. This is happening. This is happening, and it will be one of the most significant things to happen in Washington state politics in the last 30 years. One of the reasons why our state had become so successful economically, is because we were an advantageous place to do business. We were an advantageous place for people who built things, for entrepreneurs, for people with big ideas, for job creators, to come here and not be punished for it, not be taxed to death. And slowly and surely, Democrats have been getting rid of every single incentive that existed for people to come here and create businesses and do businesses and employ people with high-paying jobs. They've gotten rid of almost every single incentive, and an income tax having no income tax is the final incentive that's left. And without that, people will flee and businesses will flee, and no new businesses will come here because they would be crazy to do so. An income tax is coming this session. Democrats will pass it come hell or high water. Governor Bob Ferguson will sign it into law. Someone will sue over it. The state Supreme Court, which is full of Jay Inslee and now Bob Ferguson fanatics, will uphold it. And even an initiative run on it, that would be our last chance to defeat it, will be met with tens of millions of dollars in dishonest ads, painting it as an effort by rich people to not pay their fair share, a narrative that voters in this state have fallen for time and time and time again. The best thing that we can do is know what's happening before it happens, strategize, plan for it, do everything we can to defeat it, but at the end of the day, it is really going to be in the hands of voters. At the end of the day, it's going to be in the hands of voters. Me, you, our neighbors, our friends, and yes, the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs people on Capitol Hill in Seattle, who are all going to get to decide the economic fate of the state. Now, I have an addendum to this story today. I was going to lead the show with it until I had this conversation with, again, a very well-placed source about the chats that were happening behind the scenes at the Democratic retreat. Now, you can expect there will be businesses that are going to come out in the news, push back against all these new tax proposals. The tax on high-paying jobs that socialist Sean Scott introduced last week, and any other tax that Democrats might want to push. Why? Because the taxes are bad for business, right? I mean, just on November 21st, we shared this story. Microsoft president Brad Smith says progressive tax promises are putting Washington state's tech jobs at risk. In that Bloomberg article, Brad Smith, who again is the president of Microsoft, said if the business and tax climate continues to deteriorate in Washington state, then they will move jobs out of the state. That seems like a pretty bleak, dire opinion that the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, has about the direction of the state under Governor Bob Ferguson. Does it not? Okay. Why don't you explain this then? Explain this, Brad Smith. Month and a half before he spoke to Bloomberg and said the tax climate is so bad in Washington state that he might have to take jobs out of the state, Brad Smith gave 2 maxed out donations to Governor Bob Ferguson's 2028 reelection campaign. So let's think about that. October 1st, Brad Smith, well, November 21st, Brad Smith saying things are so bad that we want to take jobs out of the state. But a month and a half before that, he was giving $5,200 to Governor Bob Ferguson's 2028 campaign for governor. Make sense of that. Funding their own demise. Funding their own demise. And it's more than that. I've often complained about business leaders in the state who act as if they have common sense, trying to kowtow to progressives, trying to stay in the good graces of progressives and Democrats because they need to, because progressives and Democrats are the only ones who make decisions in the state of Washington. Now, I can understand a little of that, right? Like, hey, this is what we have to deal with. It's not changing anytime soon, so let's not make enemies out of them. But one thing I've always said is, you might cozy up to them, but they treat you like trash anyway. They take you for granted anyway. They target you for taxation anyway. So what has all that sucking up and boot kissing and all that, what has it gotten you? Nothing. Has it gotten you a more advantageous business environment? No, less and less and less every year. And so what motivation is there for you when they're leading to your demise anyway? What motivation is there for you to hasten it? By Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, cutting a $5,200 check for Bob Ferguson's 2028 re-election campaign, months after Bob Ferguson passed the largest tax increase in state history, much of that on the backs of businesses like Microsoft. It makes no sense, and he's not the only one. Let's take a look at Washington Roundtable. Are you familiar with Washington Roundtable? It is a nonprofit organization comprised of senior executives of major private sector employers in Washington state. Our members work together to effect positive change on public policy issues that they believe are most important to supporting state economic vitality and fostering opportunity for all Washingtonians. This roundtable is made up of all the major business leaders from all the major chambers of commerce, and it's also made up of the executives from all the major Washington state companies. The CEO, the head of Washington Roundtable, is the former Seattle Chamber CEO Rachel Smith. She was tapped for that role over the summer, so she now leads Washington Roundtable, but she was part of it even before, because she was the Seattle Chamber CEO, so she was part of it even before she became the head of the Washington Roundtable, and they put out very strong press releases all year condemning the tax and business climate in Washington state, like this one that they passed after Governor Bob Ferguson passed the largest tax increase in state history. They put out a press release expressing strong opposition to the passage of the largest tax increase in Washington state history. The press release quoted who? Rachel Smith. She cautioned that legislators should not follow Seattle's lead when it comes to raising significant new business taxes. Quote, the fact that the city of Seattle's business tax revenues are down and falling even before harmful economic actions is a cautionary tale, but clearly not one being heeded by Olympia. The press release says, contrary to claims of a budget shortfall, state revenues are rising. The true challenge is not that taxes are too low, it's that spending is too high and simply unsustainable. State spending has doubled over the last decade, yet Washingtonians are not seeing meaningful improvements in public services like education, housing, or safety. The press release said from Washington Roundtable, these extreme hikes send the wrong message to employers. Grow your business and you'll literally pay for it. At a time when job creators need certainty and support, the state is punishing growth and innovation. So this is in April, after Bob Ferguson passed the largest tax increase in state history. Washington Roundtable and Rachel Smith opposed it in the strongest terms, called it extreme, saying that it punished growth and innovation and it punished businesses. That's in April. 2 weeks ago, November 25th, 2025, Rachel Smith gave a $1,250 donation to the re-election campaign of Governor Bob Ferguson. Explain that one. Someone who months earlier was advocating in the strongest possible terms against the largest tax increase in state history, signed into law by who? Governor Bob Ferguson. saying it was punishing. He was punishing businesses and success and growth and innovation. And she turns around a few months later and she writes a 4-figure check to Governor Bob Ferguson's re-election campaign. Now, again, I understand there's some level of cozy up. He's going to be there a while. Republicans can't beat him. So let's not make him more of an enemy, although he's already about as bad of an enemy as you can get. But here's what now suddenly pisses me off. And I've had such friendly, wonderful relationships with the business community and have been their biggest advocate in the media in Washington state. It's not even close. But now you're not just hastening your own demise. You're not just hastening the end of your own businesses, the end of our economic success in the state. Now you're hurting us too. Now you're hurting us too. Because Brad Smith, it might be convenient for you to say, oh, we'll move jobs out of Washington state. Microsoft can afford to do that. You know who can't afford to do that? Virtually any small business. Name a small business that could afford to pick up tomorrow and move out of state, move their whole family out of state. Very rare. So you're hastening the demise of small businesses who can't afford to do what you could do. You're hastening the demise of families who want to continue to live in Washington state but will no longer be able to if an income tax passes. So here you have it. You have these pulpits in the news and you're saying, wow, this situation's really bad for taxation. Wow, the largest tax increase in state history is really bad. And then you go quietly behind the scenes and you write a big fat check to Bob Ferguson so he can stay in office for another 4 years. Shame on you. Shame on you. If you won't think of yourself, think of everybody else. If you won't think of yourself and the success of your own company, think of other people who cannot afford an income tax, small businesses that can't afford any business taxes. When you write a check to Bob Ferguson, you give him a big middle finger. You give him a big middle finger to the poor and the working class. That's all you do. And frankly, you know what? You give me a big fat middle finger. Someone who's been a friend and an ally and an advocate who has worked hard to push back against all the bad policy, who has, even in the face of attacks, defended big business. What did I get called last week? A big business mouthpiece. So frankly, yes, you give me a big middle finger too, because I defend you, I advocate for you, for your interests, because I know it's the right thing to do for the economic success of the state. You turn around and you write a big fat check to Bob Ferguson. And in doing so, you give me a big fucking middle finger. Now, we did reach out to both Washington Roundtable and Microsoft today. I don't believe Washington Roundtable has gotten back to us quite yet, but Microsoft sent us a very brief email. Thanks for reaching out. We don't have anything to add to this story. Because what would you add? What would you add? And I realize that businesses donate to Republicans, they donate to Democrats, they donate to people in exchange for future votes. They're hoping that if I write this check, if I max out, then maybe their future votes will be better. But we've never seen Democrats, when it comes to business, when their future votes get better. They don't back down by saying, well, we can't pass an income tax because Brad Smith wrote a $5,200 check to Bob Ferguson. No, Bob Ferguson doesn't care. That money's going to keep coming in anyway, and he's going to get elected because there is no one who's going to be able to challenge him, certainly not from the Republican side. Absolutely ridiculous. Really disappointing. Really disappointing, frankly. And maybe I rethink how defensive I am of big business. All right, coming up next, we're going to play a little game of Can You Name That Politician? I'm going to read you a quote, and you're going to guess who said it. I think it'll be fun. First, our friends at Valentine Roofing have just been awarded the best roofing company in the Pacific Northwest for a third year in a row. And why? Because they have exceptional service. They're a wonderful company, and they do what they tell you they're going to do. And they can do a variety of things. So right now, I highly recommend getting an estimate to them before Christmas comes for custom holiday lighting. Maybe you are like, I'm having family over and my house is just looking dull. Well, they can spruce it up for you. They can also clean your gutters, install gutters, attic insulation, even exterior cleaning, whatever you need done. And of course, they can replace your roof if you need your roof replaced. Or if you're not sure, maybe you've got a leak, they'll come, they'll inspect it, they'll repair the leak if they can. If not, they'll schedule time to install a new roof, and they have flexible financing options, including 0 down, 0% interest. So taking care of your home has never been easier. So call our friends at Valentine Roofing. Schedule your free estimate by calling 206 Roofing. Again, call 206 Roofing, and please make sure to tell them that you heard about them right here on Undivided with me, Brandi Kruse. All right. You ready for, I think this is our inaugural segment of Name That Politician. I'm going to read a quote, also monitor the live chat, see if I've got any good guesses as we go, shall we? And I want you to tell me who it's from. Quote, I remain committed to doing all that I can to protect Title IX and the future of every girl in Washington state and around the country who dreams of making the team, wearing a uniform, or winning an athletic scholarship. Okay? All right? We keep reading. Maybe people aren't quite guessing. That's great, right?
Yeah.
I urge the president to protect existing Title IX policies and give every young girl in America the chance to experience the roar of the crowd and not just cheer from the sidelines. Anybody? Anybody else? People are saying Bob Ferguson? Bob Ferguson? Pramila Jayapal? Who could it be? Who could it be that is so passionate?
They said Trump.
Trump. Who could it be that is so passionate about protecting girls' sports and giving every young girl in America the chance to experience the roar of the crowd and not just cheer from the sidelines? Let's watch.
I remain committed to doing all that I can to protect Title IX and the future of every girl in Washington state and around the country who dreams of making the team, wearing a uniform, or winning an athletic scholarship. I urge President Bush to protect existing Title IX policies and give every young girl in America the chance to experience the roar of a crowd and not just cheer from the sidelines.
Yes, that is Washington's own Patty Murray, United States Senator in the year 2003, urging then President Bush to make sure that recommended changes that she thought would be negative for Title IX did not go through. She wanted clearer compliance with Title IX and named a number of things that she thought would be helpful to ensure girls' participation in sports and the ability of girls who dream of making the team, wearing a uniform, or winning an athletic scholarship to be able to continue to do that. Let's keep listening to these brave remarks from 2003.
I may not be as tall as Ted Kennedy or Gina Davis, but I have every right to be here. And that's what this issue is about, making sure that the girls who come behind us have every right to participate as well. Since 1972, Title IX has opened the doors to athletics, education, and success for millions of young women across America. For 30 years, the program has increased participation under Democratic and Republican administrations alike, because Title IX is not about politics, it's about helping young women realize their dreams.
Title IX is not about politics. It's about helping young women realize their dreams. 22 years ago. Gee, what's changed? Well, I guess the only thing that's really changed is the Democratic Party's definition of what a girl is or what a woman is. But back in 2003, when she was defending girls and women so vigorously, she, of course, made it about her own daughter.
When I was at Washington State University, there was only about one sport that I could participate in, gymnastics. I loved it, but there were no choices, and women receiving athletic scholarships was unheard of. 15 years later, it was amazing to watch my own daughter get to choose to play soccer, learning how to be part of a team, cheering each other on, and learning how to be gracious in victory and defeat. The difference between my daughter's generation and my own could not be more stark. One of my favorite memories is when I watched my own daughter's high school friends compete in the high school basketball championships when she was a junior. When they won the state championship, it was a dream come true for those young girls.
This was about protecting girls, real girls, real women, and making sure that there was an ability for them to compete and an understanding that if they had to compete with men, they were never going to be successful. And there she was, 22 years ago, in 2003, advocating for it so passionately and talking about how it wasn't about then, but it was about future generations of girls.
There is no doubt that Title IX has opened doors for women between the time I went to school and my daughter went to school. The challenge for all of us today is to make sure those doors of opportunity stay open for our granddaughters and our great-granddaughters. Our civil rights laws represent our attempt to build a nation of equal opportunity, finally guaranteeing that every child has the chance to reach their dreams.
Unless they have to play against a boy. Unless they have to play against a boy. And now, 22 years later, what is United States Senator Patty Murray doing? Well, not only does she not support keeping biological boys out of girls' sports, but she is actually taking action to reverse course in states that have explicitly banned boys from competing against girls. Senator Murray was one of many congressional Democrats in the last couple days who signed on to an amicus brief for a state Supreme Court hearing and case that would look to overturn laws in Idaho and West Virginia that protect the female category in sports by prohibiting the competition of biological males. So the United States Supreme Court is getting ready to make a decision on this case. And it wasn't enough to just let it happen or just voice her opinion that, yes, I want boys to compete against girls. No, Senator Patty Murray signed on to an amicus brief in favor of reversing those laws in Idaho and West Virginia, two states she doesn't even represent. And the brief she put her name on said that prohibiting boys would categorically harm all girls and women through harassment and policing of children's reproductive biology. She says a categorical ban undermines the ability of transgender athletes to participate in their school community. The recent failures to amend Title IX show the weakness in the petitioner's strained interpretations. They say that this is the improper tool to address participation in youth sports teams. And it's not fair to ban boys who merely want to play sports with their friends on teams that match their gender identity. Contrast that position from United States Senator Patty Murray with her passionate remarks 22 years ago during the Bush administration, where she urged the president to continue to make sure that girls were protected by Title IX to protect fairness in competition. And of course, all of this is very timely right now because of the initiative in Washington state that would protect girls' sports. So now we not only know that she's not in favor of doing that, she is so opposed to it that in states that aren't even our state, in Idaho and West Virginia, she doesn't even want other states and voters and leaders in other states to be able to make a decision in their states to keep boys out of girls' sports. How far she has fallen in 2 decades. And I will also say, we looked at the full list, I think it was like 130 congressional Democrats on the House side and the Senate side who signed on to this amicus brief, including these Democrats from our state who I would like to name and shame today. A couple of them might actually be quite surprising. So, of course, Senator Patty Murray. Representative Adam Smith, I'm shocked by that one. I need to speak to the man about it. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, not a surprise. Congresswoman Emily Randall, not a surprise. She's an extremist. Congressman Rick Larson.
That she's
no, not a surprise. Congressman Rick Larson surprises me. I thought he was more reasonable than that. And frankly, Congresswoman Susan DelBene surprises me. I thought she was more reasonable than that as well. Now, I do think it's interesting that there are a few people who are absent from that list. Senator Maria Cantwell didn't sign it. Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp Perez didn't sign it. Congresswoman Kim Schreier didn't sign it. I'll get back to that in a moment. Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland didn't sign it. That's not by accident. Clearly, everyone was given an opportunity to sign it, and they chose not to. I like to think it's for the right reasons. I like to think it's because they know that boys shouldn't be playing against girls, and it is fundamentally in opposition with the main purpose of Title IX and what it was designed for in the first place, and what Senator Patty Murray herself was advocating for back in 2003. The internet is forever. The internet is forever. Now, Congresswoman Kim Schreier is interesting, and we'll reach out to her office today for comment on this, because what does she do? She's a pediatrician. That's what she ran on. She's a pediatrician. And what is the main argument that has been made here against the initiative Protect Girls Sports? And one of the main arguments that's been being made in this amicus brief is that this will expose kids to rogue genital exams. At any moment, they might have to drop their pants and show whoever asks whether they have a penis or a vagina, which of course is ridiculous. When you play athletics, you have to have physicals, and your pediatrician knows whether you're a boy or a girl. They know, okay? They know. No amount of this or this is going to change it. They know. And you know who knows they know? The pediatrician in Congress, Congresswoman Kim Schreier. She knows that pediatricians already do genital exams on kids as part of their annual wellness exam to monitor development, puberty, all of those things. It's very normal. And she knows that it is an asinine assertion to suggest that this is going to be kids dropping their shorts, their gym shorts, for some pervert coach who wants to look at their PP. Wild stuff. But you know what? Can we just play one more time? Because I think for viewers, the difference and the contrast is so stark of that quote from Patty Murray, the first one that we played from 2003.
I remain committed to doing all that I can to protect Title IX and the future of every girl in Washington State and around the country who dreams of making the team, wearing a uniform, or winning an athletic scholarship. I urge President Bush to protect existing Title IX policies and give every young girl in America the chance to experience the roar of a crowd and not just cheer from the sidelines.
And that's what they want still. They want a chance to experience the roar of the crowd. They want a chance to be able to participate in the sport they love. And every time a boy gets to play in girls' sports, they take that chance away. Shame on you, Senator Murray. Shame on you. We'll get to our segment Unbelievable coming up next. First, our friend Wes Jones is the guy to call if you're thinking about selling your home. Reach out to him, sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com. Wow. Really is a better way to sell your home. And Wes and his team can offer a bunch of things that you're not going to find from other real estate agents. For instance, Elizabeth W. took advantage of their listing boost concierge service, where they can come in if you need cosmetic upgrades. They can recommend which ones are going to be worth it, that you're actually going to get the money out of on the back end. And then if you need to, they can manage all of that for you. They can manage the contractors. They can even set it up so you don't have to pay for those upgrades until closing. So it takes the stress of having to come out of pocket a bunch of money during an already expensive process, selling your home, buying a new home. So sellwithwes.com, Elizabeth said, I love how they offer the exact support that I needed without any pressure. They were quick to respond. We had a few hiccups after I emptied the apartment. She was a little worried. You take your furniture out and all of a sudden you see a bunch of new things you didn't notice before. So they're like, don't worry about it. We got it handled. Went in there. No problem at all. She said, I appreciate all the support for a quick and easy sale. Elizabeth W., 5 stars. So reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. Sellwithwes.com. It really just is a better way to sell your home. All right. Oh, wow. Washington State actually admitting what we knew to be true. It gave commercial driver's licenses to a bunch of illegals. Let's talk about it in our segment. Unbelievable. I love how the media is couching it, though. Like, they don't say they went to a bunch of illegals. They went to people who were not domiciled in Washington State. Oh, they went to non-citizens. All right, you're almost there. You're almost getting there. Let's just say it together. Illegals, illegal aliens. So this is a deadly serious topic. And I'll tell you now, I've been on the roads. I used to think, and Nicole and I were having this conversation because, of course, and sorry if we're all strained today, I didn't do a show poll because after the show yesterday, we immediately left for Vancouver, Washington, which I will say, the flooding on the way down there, I hope you guys are okay today. Because we went through like Chehalis and Centralia. The flooding was insane because of all the weather. But I bring that up because we had a lot of time in the car. And it used to be that I was least worried about trucks on the road. Because I'm like, if you're driving a big rig, you are the best driver on the road. You have jumped through hoops. Nobody else has jumped through. I'm not worried about you. But now I am. Mm-hmm. Is that unreasonable? I don't think it is, because we're in a state that gives out CDLs apparently like candy from a Pez dispenser, and it doesn't matter if you're in the country illegally, if you even speak the language, and if you even know what the hell you're doing. And we've seen the deadly consequences of that. So of course you'll remember in August in Florida, the illegal alien who made an illegal U-turn killed 3 people on the Florida Turnpike, and he had unlawfully, wrongfully received commercial driver's licenses in both the state of Washington and the state of California. So he's driving across the country because you might get your CDL in one state, but that doesn't mean you're only driving around in that state. So our lax policies and our sanctuary policies and all the things we do to treat illegals like everyone else, they have an impact on other states, which is why it needs to be made mandated common compliance across the entire country. So that happened. That led the federal government to investigate what's happening in some of these states that maybe don't have the rigorous standards or aren't complying with Department of Transportation standards for CDLs. So what did they find? Well, they find probably what we'd find if we looked at the voter data. Washington state standard. Washington erred in granting hundreds of commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens. And by 100, it's like 700. And that is a ton. So from the state standard, the growing attention led Washington's licensing departments to discover 685 errors of the same kind as the guy who killed people on the Florida Turnpike over the course of 7 years. That's 100 a year. Mm-hmm. Out driving on the road that shouldn't, like the guy who killed people in Florida, shouldn't have had a commercial driver's license. It says all of those licenses were active when the mistakes were found. So they're still driving. Mm-hmm. Well, they were. That figure doesn't account for errors with credentials that had already lapsed. So probably more than 100 a year, because those 685 are only the ones still actively licensed with commercial driver's licenses. So it doesn't account for people who, maybe moved out of the country or got deported or something like that. So the figure actually is probably much higher. So Singh, the guy from Florida, and others should have received what's called a non-domiciled commercial driver's license, meant for non-citizens with valid work authorization. Citizens and lawful permanent residents get standard licenses, which is what Singh received. Standard licenses expire at the same time as the driver's regular driving credential, while non-domiciled ones lapse when their work authorization expires. It's unclear how many of the 685 drivers in Washington were issued commercial licenses that went beyond their work authorization due to the mistake. So it's kind of complicated, but basically if you're not a citizen, you get a different kind of CDL than you get if you're a citizen. And basically, if your work authorization expires, well, you can't drive anymore. But they were getting the one that doesn't check whether your work authorization expires because they got the one that a citizen would get. So that's obviously very problematic. It goes on to say, a U.S. Department of Transportation spokesperson said Washington's, quote, failure to follow federal law is a blatant breakdown in its responsibility to protect the public. By handing out standard CDLs to drivers who were never eligible, Washington sent unsafe foreign drivers onto highways across America and put countless families in danger. The spokesperson said in an email, this is exactly the kind of negligence Secretary Duffy is working to eliminate. Following the law is not optional. Washington's Department of Licensing spokesperson Nathan Olson said in an email that, quote, errors have been addressed and DOL is working to make changes in our system, process, procedures, and training to prevent misissuances in the future. So I guess I have to apologize to the media because I thought they were using the phrase non-domiciled on their own. That's actually what it's called, is a non-domiciled CDL. So I wouldn't put it past the media, though, to say, oh, that's just that person is non-domiciled. And that I'm surprised they don't call the homeless people that. That's not a homeless person. That's a non-domiciled individual. But okay, so you found the errors. The errors shouldn't have existed in the first place, but I'm not confident in the Department of Licensing that they're going to be able to root this out. Why? Because the procedures by law, it is so difficult to determine someone's citizenship status in this state. It's by design. They treat illegals, for all intents and purposes, like they treat citizens. So no wonder why they're getting citizen IDs. And I want to know specifically what the procedure is in a sanctuary state where someone you can come in illegally and you can get a driver's license. So who is checking for citizenship? What stage is citizenship being checked? Because I know the state ain't checking for citizenship because it's against the law to do so. Is it the companies that train them that they have to check? Is it the companies they're employed with that have to check? We just had a 4-car pileup on I-5 by a guy who's a Mexican national who didn't have a license, didn't have insurance, and who was driving a big rig, the ones filled with new cars, down I-5, driving for a company in California. How is that even possible? Not only, he wasn't even illegal. He was living in Mexico, driving for a California company, no CDL, no insurance. What kind of company would hire him? That's a huge liability for them. These are the people who are driving on our roadways. So now, I don't know about you, but I'm all freaked out. It used to be I wouldn't worry about a semi-truck at all. Like, they're on it. Maybe, late at night, worried about them falling asleep or something. And now, every time I look at a truck and I'm like, is there an illegal in that truck? Can they speak English? Did they get their CDL appropriately? Have they gone through all the training? Do they qualify? It's really an insane situation. So I think it's probably way more than 700. And I do not believe the Department of Licensing when they say that they have fixed this and they are putting practices in place so it doesn't happen again. I guess I'll believe it when I see it. All right, we'll get to some national news coming up next. I know it's not Thursday, but we are going to go to the Sunshine State and talk about some common sense steps being taken there to push back against radical gender ideology. First, I highly recommend making some time. You probably have days off work. I would guess a lot of you, like us, are going to be taking vacation at the end of December. And so I think you'll have some free days to be able to save your family money. Why not use a free day to save your family money by taking the First Mark Challenge? FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. There's a couple benefits to it. Once you do the First Mark Challenge, it's a little time investment, right? You got to spend like a half hour to an hour on the phone with them, go over your current insurance. But after that, dang, they make insurance easy. They're checking in on you. They're updating things proactively. You're never going to have to go and be like, hey, I need to do. No, they're going to check in with you, see if your life's changed. Are you adding a new card? You got a new driver? What's going on? How is your current insurance working? Any problems? And I love that about them. And since they're doing all the work for you, they're going to make sure they have the best policy for your family's needs. And they're going to make sure that they have the best policy at the best price. And we've heard so many stories over the years from Undivided viewers and listeners who've taken the First Mark Challenge. And the common theme is they're saving me hundreds of dollars a month, Brandi. Or in Christine's case, I love this one because, holy smokes, one call to First Mark, she's saving $10,000 a year. What would you do with an extra $10,000 a year? Take that family vacation you've been putting off, or as Zach Abraham would probably recommend, you see I'm cross-referencing sponsors in a single ad post, saving it for a rainy day, maybe paying down debt, whatever. It's still $10,000 per year, which I think is pretty great. So take the First Mark Challenge today. FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. So they always have your best interest in mind. All right, let's go to the state of Florida. The Attorney General in Florida, James Uthmeier, is suing medical associations over transgender surgeries and health care. I hate calling it care because it's not care. Trans surgeries and other type of medical care involving trans ideology on minors and their advocacy, frankly. So it says Florida's Attorney General sued 3 prominent medical organizations on Tuesday over allegations they engaged in deceptive practices and racketeering by promoting gender-affirming care for minors without sufficient scientific evidence. It's interesting. Racketeering is fascinating on this topic. So basically, they're out there, these prominent medical organizations, and they're pushing this idea of kids getting, gender surgeries or kids getting hormone therapy when there was never proper medical science to be able to back up the necessity for it or the safety of it. Here's the Attorney General.
We believe these organizations failed to disclose the risks, limits, and evidence when promoting so-called gender-affirming care for children. For years, these groups insisted the recommendations were settled science, but behind closed doors, they knew the evidence was weak. They knew the outcomes uncertain and the risks very real. Parents were not told the full story. In fact, some parents were told that if they didn't put their kids through permanent, life-altering sick procedures like double mastectomies and castration, that their child would commit suicide.
Gosh.
Not only is that unethical and dangerous medicine, but it is against the law. Children were irrevocably harmed because truth was replaced with political activism. When organizations make medical claims, they have a duty to be honest. When they intentionally mislead families, their members, and the medical profession, we hold them accountable. Florida will always follow the evidence, protect children, and defend parents' rights to make informed decisions. Thank you.
Now, in no other arena of medicine would a statement like that be controversial. Where if you had any other arena of medicine where they were promising something or making promises based on nothing, where they were pushing something that wasn't backed up by science. I'm trying to think of like a random example. Oh, this dentist on TV, this fluoride toothpaste will make it so that your enamel doesn't wear down. And then you get all the credit, and then, you could sue them, right? So they're making claims that aren't backed up by anything, and it would never be controversial for an attorney general to take legal action. Of course, it's controversial when it is over transgender care. So the case, again, on racketeering and deceptive practices targets the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, the Endocrine Society, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is the big one, over their alleged development and promotion of clinical guidelines recommending gender-affirming interventions. He says the groups violated the Florida Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices Act and the Florida Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. That's crazy. Literally going after the American Academy of Pediatrics as a corrupt organization under Florida's Racketeering Act. It's time that something like this happens. And the damage is done, sadly. I think about that all the time as we talk about this transgender craze and these schools where you've got 20% of a class that thinks they're a different gender than they actually are, and the indoctrination that has led kids down these medical paths that they will never fully recover from. And we've had detransitioners on the show. You can quote unquote detransition, but you can't get your breasts back, can't get your reproductive organs back. I mean, you'll never change. And I mean, there has to be at some point major payouts over this. I don't know when that will come. I mean, we're not even to the point where the medical community has acknowledged that it erred. I mean, some of them are starting to pull back, but it's usually because donors are threatening to pull money or the federal government is threatening to pull money. But there's not a lot of that happening just because it's the right thing to do. So we have a long way to go before we can try to make victims of this, compensate victims of this, and try to help them on a more productive path toward healing. So it starts with just acknowledging we made a mistake here. All right, so a topic that I have disagreed, I think, with the Trump administration on. I know that you guys, a lot of you feel much differently about that. Nicole maybe even does. The ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. I don't like the idea. I don't think. I've really tried to work my mind around this because I understand some of the arguments. I don't like the idea of it being wholesale. I think it should be case by case, a review from a medical professional as to whether that has any impact or bearing on your ability to serve. Yeah, because there have been individuals who have served and sacrificed for our country and who have served in very difficult, dangerous circumstances for our country who are transgender. Do I like the idea of just saying, okay, now we're taking your uniform away? I just don't know that I'm there yet. I don't think I've gotten to that point. But Circuit Court in D.C. has sided with the Pentagon on its transgender military ban. This is from Courthouse Service News. The majority, both Donald Trump appointees, determined Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's policy was likely constitutional because a classification based on transgender status does not trigger heightened scrutiny. So they believe that this passes constitutional muster, and the majority, it was two, so there's a three-judge panel two of them that agreed with the Pentagon were Donald Trump appointees. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that will stand up. I mean, I think this is eventually something that will find its way to the United States Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens there. I'm kind of torn about it, curious what you guys think about it. But for now, the transgender ban on military service members will hold up. All right, as I mentioned, I'm sorry I don't have a daily show poll for you today. We were rushing to get back from Vancouver, so I owe you one. We'll get to subscriber comments that we missed throughout the show coming up next. But first, it's going to be a busy legislative session. I think we'll talk about a lot of new taxes. We'll also end up talking about housing policy. I'm sure that Democrats are going to be pushing maybe even changes to the existing rent control policy to make it even more advantageous for tenants. Who knows? So if you are a small to mid-sized landlord, a reminder, now is a good time to become a member of the Rental Housing Association of Washington, rhawa.org, rhawa.org. Empowering housing providers is what they're all about. So they can help you on a personal basis, navigate rules, regulations, paperwork. If you're just not sure if you've done everything you need to do as a landlord, or if you're in the right or you're in the wrong, they can help you with that. And down in Olympia, they are your voice, and they are knocking on doors, trying to make sure that the situation around regulation for housing providers doesn't get any more burdensome than it already is. So rhawa.org, rhawa.org, become a member today. All right, comments from the live stream. Oh, some super chats today. Wow, you guys are really generous. And you don't need to do a super chat to get your comment read. We read a lot of comments from the show that aren't super chats, but we appreciate the super chats nonetheless.
But you just got to make that comment good.
You better make that comment good. Well, right, yes.
If you want it to get picked by Miranda.
Miranda's the picker and the chooser. All right, Old Sub Sailor, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I really believe that all of these taxes are part of a national plan for a socialist takeover of the government, pushing the middle class out of blue states into red states. I don't know, because what would that do? I mean, I think they're pushing conservatives into red states, and now we're just having blue states are bluer, red states are redder. Is that a good thing? I mean, I don't know. But the socialist takeover would necessitate a level of government control that's hard to escape from, where the government has so much control over your life that next step of totalitarianism is easy to take. And yes, taxing the ever-living hell out of you and making it almost impossible to survive on your own is something that could lead to that. Mm-hmm. Baron of Gray Matter, yes, people have fallen for it, but we now have a huge population of gimme-dats. Gimme-dats. Gimme-dats who expect the government to give them everything. They don't want to work. They will vote for this. So will illegals. Yeah, like I said, hey, we did that assessment of the Department of Licensing program. Let's just do the same assessment of our voter data. Why not? Let's see what we find.
Well, it's weird because the threat of losing funding worked for them, apparently.
I guess.
Threaten the road funding. Do that.
Take that away.
Again.
What is the worst thing you can threaten? Let's do it. Joe Wilson, we need a voice, fearless, intellectually honest, charismatic, grassroots. Oh, I was just going to say, are you talking about me? But you are. Fearless. Oh, intellectually honest, charismatic, grassroots, someone who can debate with the morally bankrupt. Brandi, run for office. I was like reading that. I was like, gonna make a joke. You must be talking about me. But you are. Humble through and through, truly. Mm-hmm. Oh man, we were at an event last night. I had one drink. We were with some friends. I get just giggly on one. I don't really drink anymore just because he's like gastrointestinal issues. My stomach just doesn't like it. Doesn't like booze anymore. It doesn't mean I won't have a nice craft cocktail from time to time. But we had some great wine that I loved, and I had one drink, and I was like, wow. And I get kind of like this, It's like just joking around.
Lack of sleep.
That's what it'll take.
Drive this morning.
Oh my gosh, I know. And I'm sorry. I'm sure on Patreon we put out the live link to the show right before we came on, a no show poll. It's because we almost didn't make it back. I mean, we didn't want to cancel a show for that event because we're going to be gone the last 2 weeks of the year, as we are every year, although we have some fantastic content planned. So we just can't miss shows for the rest of December. So man, though, I got up that early wake up call in Vancouver this morning. I was like, kill me. Just kill me. And I wasn't feeling particularly good, but we made it in the rain. Oh, it was really something else. Anyway, Papa Woody, Bob doesn't plan on using taxes to tax his way out of the deficit, means he never plans to balance the budget or the deficit, just tax. Yeah, taxes are an easy way to balance the budget. Let's see.
He should say that. I'm making some temporary cuts this year.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll bring them back
And
next
then once
year.
once we increase taxes, I'll
don't
bring them back
worry.
next year. He is such a squirrely liar. Why? The unfortunate truth is that no politician is going to be honest and transparent, especially the Washington Democrats. Income tax is going to be ammunition for them to just steal all our money. I probably triggered people in the comments about, sorry, I just burped. I apologize. I am
Full of
I couldn't really
full
hide
of
it.
surprises today.
I'm sorry. I promise. I'm a lady. I do apologize. What was I saying? No politician is going to be honest and transparent. Yes. And I'm sure I triggered some people in the comments when I said I would have a conversation about an income tax. But of course, the caveat was if they actually were going to get rid of the other taxes that they say are in place of an income tax.
It would have to be part of the law.
Well, right. And you'd have to do the math. I mean, if you do the math and it actually is going to cost middle class and working class people less, then I don't know how I argue with that. But you're never going to get rid of those taxes. And I don't trust you to get rid of them initially and then bring them back because, we need to pay for the laser hair removal for trans inmates. On the businesses funding their own demise, Diana says these CEOs use their own money to support their virtue signaling. They know they can escape when it gets bad. Very self-absorbed, which is not a surprise. Dale, Ludwig, they seek to collapse the state's economy. They want the state government and the people to go bankrupt. But why? What is the reason for Brad Smith, for Rachel Smith? What is with the Smiths?
I know.
I know they're not married, by the way.
Well, it is the second most common name in the world.
I don't
think.
understand. Unless it
Probably not
really
world anymore.
is, I think there's two reasons. You want to hope that it will get you something down the road, even if that is a very far-fetched hope, or you're a true believer. Or it really doesn't matter. Like it is you, maybe you hate Donald Trump so much. And so that's what you're donating your money based off of is like, I hate Trump so much, so I'm going to support Democrats, even though Democrats are hurting me in this other area. But it's just wild.
Or like you said, that, I mean, maybe Brad, it doesn't matter because he can stay here. He can afford to stay here, even if he has to move or even if the company has to move to Vancouver, he can stay here.
But then what?
Maybe it doesn't matter.
But
that
you're
much.
rich. Why would you support someone who wants to tax more and more of your wealth? I mean, maybe he believes in it, but I have a hard time believing that because I've heard from people he's a really reasonable guy. And so I don't get it. On Patty Murray's 2003 comments, standing up for girls, sidekick, their position has flip-flopped on everything. Allison, I want the whole boys basketball team to sign up for the girls team. Being extreme is the only way to get a point across. I tend to agree. Like, go in there, straight up boys. I'm joining the best player on the boys team should sign up to be on the girls team with all his friends.
Yeah.
And then let every single girl, including the star athletes, black, white, everyone, take every single girl's opportunity away. It'll take one game. It will take one game. This is such a great point. Is there one school brave enough to do that? Brave enough to say, we're taking the whole boys team, and the whole boys team is going to play against girls. And they are going to pound them into dust.
Yeah, they all.
And I'm sorry, but you're right. Extremism is the only response to this level of extremism, to show this makes no sense. And you can't question their identity because they'll say, no, I believe I'm a girl.
To a boys basketball game. And I mean, of course, they might lose, but just to make a point. Like, just to say, this is ridiculous. Why is it okay for you to show up on our court, but you think it's silly for us to show up on yours?
Well, they wouldn't play, right? But the boys would play. Like, no, these are all our best players. Sorry. And the girls have to sit out their opportunities. 100%. That needs to happen. All right, Robert. Senator Murray is in favor of boys and girls sports now because it no longer affects her daughter. Yeah, it doesn't affect Bob Ferguson's daughter either because he sends his girl to a private school.
It's my favorite comment is that it's not political. They make everything political.
Everything's political.
Because everything's an attack on the politics of the other party.
Right.
Everything is an attack on Trump. Everything's an attack on MAGA. It's all political to them. But then when it's something that they want, they're like, well, let's put politics aside here.
No, this isn't political. Right. No, you're right. It's not political. It shouldn't be, but you've made it political. On Washington mistakenly issuing CDLs to illegals, John Thomas, the channel Trucking Made Successful, has done a lot of work on licensing and rogue companies. You should interview her. Breaks it down Barney style. Okay, so there's a channel it's called Trucking Made Successful that talks about some of these issues. I bet it's interesting. Let's see here. John the Magic Guy, CDL driver here. These people are the ones driving down wages. Yep. Katrina Ferguson, no relation. I'm sure you have to say that all the time.
Another
Katrina
popular
Ferguson,
name right now.
no relation. I'm a weighmaster, and I get truck drivers that don't speak or understand English. I'm sure some have CDLs, but some don't. It is so dangerous, just wild.
Well, that's supposed to be the new thing. I mean, Trump said they have to speak English, and that's part of this. Even if you live in another country, you can get a license, but you still have to speak English. That's part of the deal. I think.
It's interesting. And that's one I've come around on. When I first heard it, I'm like, come on. But then I'm like, wait, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. How would you, in emergencies? Yeah. On the Florida AG suing pediatric orgs over gender care. Looking up for Jesus, I love how they sugarcoat child genital mutilation by calling it affirming. These are some slick devils that have captured the language. All right, court upholding the trans military ban. John Thomas says the trans are non-deployable because of the medication and medical support required. None have served overseas. Interesting. But you don't have to be... You can claim you're trans and not have had any medical intervention. You just want to dress like a chick. Is that somebody who's non-deployable? I mean, is that question their mental health, I guess? Okay. All right, maybe we're coming around. I get it.
But I think what he's saying is so I've heard this multiple times because it increased their, like, if they were to get captured by the enemy, like, then they don't have their medication, then things go wrong quicker, and then they have this extra liability there.
Yeah. Big Princess, Brandi's swear jar fund. I don't think I swore today.
I said a couple of people said. I thought you said F-bomb.
Didn't I say F? I didn't say the whole word.
Maybe you didn't. A couple of people thought you did.
Maybe I was too convincing.
A lot of bombs in the chat.
I'm trying not to say
Maybe they were just
word.
allowing you to say it. I don't know.
Did I say it? Wow, I get in a rage. It's blinding. I get in a blind rage over these things. Good comments today.
Yeah, good stuff.
We have an important closing sanity check. I mean, isn't every closing sanity check important? But first, the talk of an AI bubble, everything else going on with the economy. It's just good to get a second opinion on a retirement portfolio. I mean, this is one of the most important things that you're building toward and working towards is your hard-earned retirement. And the markets have been nuts, overvaluations. And again, people are talking about an AI bubble. So reach out to our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital and just say, hey, Brandi said you can give me a second opinion. Just take a look at my retirement portfolio. He and his team will be happy to do that for you, give you an advice on how to best protect your investments, and also do a kind of preview for 2026 and a full reveal, as always, of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, and give your retirement as much upside as possible, which is what we all want. So you can do two things at knowyourriskpodcast.com. Schedule your free Know Your Risk portfolio review. That's number one. And while you're there, subscribe to Zach's daily market recap at knowyourriskpodcast.com. That's knowyourriskpodcast.com. And with that, let's get to our closing sanity check. All right, it is do or die time, folks. There are just a couple weeks left to qualify the 2 Let's Go Washington initiatives to be sent to the legislature. I do not have to tell you the importance of getting them across the finish line. It really, to me, is about more than these 2 initiatives. I think if they don't get enough signatures, it will set our movement against radical gender ideology back 5 years. I mean, I really feel like we'll be back at square one. And the unions will have been able to win with their lying. They'll continue to push this radical gender identity on children, keep secrets from parents. Girls who've spoken out bravely will continue to have their opportunities taken away. So a couple things. If you have the initiative forms that were mailed to you or you picked up somewhere, you know, if you got a couple family members, you know, in the next couple days we're going to sign them, fine. But otherwise, you have to mail them in today because it takes time to count all those things, to make sure they have enough signatures. It's going to be very close. I will tell you, I spoke to Let's Go Washington this morning. They're hopeful, but it's going to be very close, razor thin. And so do not leave, even if you have 1 signature on them, 5, or they're filled out. Please, for me, put them in the mail today. And again, if you imminently know you're going to get more signatures, get them and then put them in the mail. But if not, put them in the mail today. If you haven't signed yet, letsgowashington.com has locations where you can sign. A lot of churches have opportunities, a lot of gun shops. There's a map where you can find locations to be able to sign. If there's nothing near you, reach out to Let's Go Washington or come to my event this Saturday. Because then we can 2 birds, 1 stone. You can see us and you can give common sense a comeback and finally sign on. And we'll also have the third initiative for voter ID there as well, because I know some people asked me that. So this Saturday, I'm going to be in Tumwater. We're back in the belly of the beast. Last time we were there, the alphabet mob came out in force, tried to surround us, but we were surrounded by strong men. So I anticipate, as with any time I go anywhere near Tumwater, I anticipate we shall be protested again. So we need all of you there. You gotta come. Even if you already signed the thing, we need your support. Annalie Wilson's going to be there speaking. She needs your support. Strong men and women, welcome. Saturday, December 13th, 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., Michael T. Simmons Elementary. Now, you can, if you're like Brandi, I can't stay the whole time, you can sign and go. Dine and dash, for all I care. Say a quick hello, got to sign this thing, got to get out of here. But if you'd like to stay around, hear some speeches, hear some thoughts, we'd love to have you there. So we'll have the 2 Let's Go Washington initiatives, and then we will also have the initiative. I know I double-checked with Jim Walsh of the Washington State Republican Party. We'll have the initiative to protect, I can't speak today, to protect elections and restore voter ID. Nicole, you look like I'm missing something.
No, I just, because we did talk to Let's Go Washington this morning, and they are, they just need volunteers. So if you have the time and you need to, and you have the will.
The cojones?
Like, volunteer, call them. And I mean, maybe that means counting signatures, opening mail, anything like that. But if you have time, I know they need help. So.
Yeah, and they, Nicole and I did it the last time there were initiatives. We literally posted up at a restaurant with some people, and all we did was open envelopes with people sending initiatives back. So there's an opportunity to be able to volunteer. You can contact them, contact@letsgowa.com, say I want to volunteer, or I need to find a place today to sign this thing. So please get them in. It's going to be razor thin, and it would break my freaking heart, and it would be such a step backwards if we do not get these initiatives sent to the legislature. So that's your closing sanity check. See you on Saturday. No, I'm going to see you tomorrow. It's not Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Feels like it.
It does feel like it. That has been today's episode of Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. We do appreciate every single one of you, but we have slightly more appreciation for our paid subscribers. It's true. I'm not going to lie about it. It's true. So you can become a paid subscriber, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show, and that's it. And you can participate in our subscriber show polls on days where we have them. Please forgive me for that today. And then our awesome episodes of Sundays with Subscribers. All right. We'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, back here. Same time, same place.